Good afternoon. This is Thompson with Exit Realty Central, located here in Norfolk, Virginia. And I'm going to come to you. We're going to be on part 5 of the RAIN contract. Today we're going to talk about ratification and deposit. Two things in this section 5 that I kind of need to go over as we continue on our process throughout this contract. First thing, when we're looking at for ratification date, that's what our first topic is going to be. That is on a contract. So on, for example, this one is our RAIN contract here locally. Ratification date is when both the buyer and the seller agree to all the terms on this contract. So when we've agreed on price, when we've agreed on closing date, when we've agreed on closing cost assistance, that is ratification date. So it's not when I sign it as a realtor. I'm there to kind of help out, but just a clarification, it's between when the buyer and the seller have both agreed. That is the ratification date. So once they've agreed on all terms, that's when we're officially ratified. Now what that does after that, that starts our clock. That is when we talk about earlier videos, we talked about the EMD or the earnest money deposit. That's when, as the agent, if I'm the buyer's agent, I now have 5 business days to get that check, so that $1,000, $500 like we discussed, and put it into an escrow account. We'll talk about escrow account at a different time. But that is when we have that. So that time clock starts for me, it starts for you. So the key things there is, you've already given me that check, you've already told me that money's in that account. Make sure it's there, because it is extremely embarrassing to take that money, go to put it in there, and we get ready to cash it so it stays in escrow, and you don't have the money in that account, and then that check balances, and then we create other issues. But that specific thing, the big thing out of this section is ratification date is when the parties involved, so the buyer and the seller agree to terms, not when myself or the listing agent or whichever role I'm playing in this transaction, not when we sign, when the two parties that are buying it and selling it have agreed upon that. And then know that your earnest money deposit will then be deposited into that escrow account, held in there, and make sure. The last thing is, this is also talks about how it gets back to you. So this is, if we close, then that's where it's going to be, as I said in those other videos, apply to the loan or to apply to your closing costs, whatever needed there. If you don't close, and as long as we're not in default on either side, that's where we're also going to start to determine how that money gets back to the buyer, or if it's going to the seller if we're in default. So this is kind of that section that kind of goes over all of that to make sure you know what's going on there in there. So read through there just to know when that ratification date technically is, especially nowadays with electronic signatures. See my other video on electronic signatures, but that's what it is. So section 5, ratification, and when that deposit of that earnest money deposit goes into that account. What's my responsibility? What's your responsibility? All right, thank you again. If you have any questions, please leave the comments below, and I look forward to hearing from you sometime soon. Have a wonderful day.